Hi, my name's Sandy Anderson, and this is my presentation for Module 10 about how to help students realize their learning norms. The first of these norms is relationships. When I consider relationships, I think about the ways in which we choose to connect with our students so then they can take that type of a relationship and apply it to other relationships in their life. I think about supporting kids with developing healthy relationships with their peers, as well as parents or community members, and just trying to find ways to make every moment count throughout the day and really make every child feel like they are seen and heard. A fun way to measure that is if you are able to name 2 facts about each of the students in your class, and it can't be things like, oh, they're sweet or they're kind. What are 2 very specific things that you could tell about them? What shows do they like? Do they play any sports? Are they into video games? The next one is relevance, and this might be one of my favorite ones because I feel like it automatically increases the level of engagement for students. Relevance can be shared through things like I can statements or just simply telling the students why you do everything that you do. We talk a lot about metacognition in my classroom and the purpose behind every single task that it is we're doing. I explain to students that when we draw little lines underneath letters and make the sound, it helps to unitize it by connecting multiple areas of our brain and developing a strong pathway. I feel like even just that teeny tiny conversation just really helps students to kind of own their learning and become a lot more invested in it. Time is the third norm. The video asks if we expect children to learn at a constant pace, and this kind of makes me think about my own learning whenever we have professional developments. I typically walk away just thinking about what I can do differently to not make students feel like I just felt, where it was 8 straight hours of constant information. So kind of considering how we're able to address all individual needs and kind of build in those necessary brain breaks or recess time, or just ways that we can help give students a breath to not feel so overwhelmed with constant information. I also put Maslow's hierarchy of needs on there because if kids don't come to school with those needs being met, we can't expect them to continuously learn for 7 straight hours. The next norm that was mentioned was timing. I believe in theory, helping students to develop the norm of timing is a great idea, and I think it would help increase engagement. It makes me think of things like Montessori schools, but honestly, when I consider the public school setting, it is something kind of for me that is hard for me to wrap my brain around. Just kind of considering the rigorous scope and sequences that typically come with most curriculums just kind of makes it very hard to adjust to students learning in sequences that they choose. I think there's ways in which we can integrate that type of timing, such as doing book clubs or maybe even freedom of choice with centers, free play in those ways. There's definitely ways in which you can support that as a norm. It's just kind of one that I'm still developing the idea in my own head. When we consider play as a norm, I think this is incredibly important. I feel like kids learn so much through play, and play doesn't have to be chaos. Play can be STEM, play can be group activities, play can be hands-on applications, play can be what-if questions. There's lots of different ways in which we can engage students through play and offer opportunities to explore, to make their mistakes and be okay with it, and then keep trying and figuring it out again. This is another one that I enjoy seeing as a reading specialist is practice. It is definitely a norm that I believe has been missing from reading practices across the United States for many, many years. We would often give a one and done type approach to skills within reading, but we've really discovered the absolute need for practice. If kids are not provided ample amounts of opportunities to practice the skills in which they are taught and are developing, those pathways won't become automatic. And then what happens is there is a processing delay. I actually feel like I see a lot of students who have been identified as processing disorders when a lot of the time it is just not where they're not being provided ample amounts of opportunities to practice a skill. So I really enjoyed that this one was put in there from the academic perspective, and also like considering the social emotional perspective of it as well. If we don't engage students in opportunities to practice developing appropriate social norms, we can't expect them to do so on a daily basis. The next one, and I kind of talked about this one a little bit, is choice. Just being able to engage students in their own choices with learning. This does kind of align with timing in my brain. To me, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of Montessori schools. But again, when I consider the public school setting, it's hard for me to think about how at the elementary level we could adequately engage in this every day. I think of choices in the aspect of throughout the day, giving kids ownership in their learning through different ways, such as, would you like to sit or stand today? Do you want to use a bouncy chair? Do you want to sit on the floor over here? Would you like to write in pencil or would you like to write in marker? And just finding a million ways every day to give students choice kind of helps to develop their own ownership. And so maybe I'm thinking about it in too broad of a way. But when I consider choices throughout the day, I think there are definitely ways to do that. With smaller ones, I think it's just harder to do in engaging students in academic choice at the primary levels. I think it's definitely more feasible when students enter high school and middle school and they're able to make choices for the types of classes in which they participate in. The next norm is authenticity. That's where we kind of ask ourselves the question, is what I'm doing valued by others? This is where I think it's super important to develop a family type community within your building where everybody is constantly celebrating student success. It's not just within a classroom, finding ways that everybody can celebrate together. I'm very proud of my school for this because they do a phenomenal job of just sharing out when kids do great things, and it just opens the door for when you're walking in the hallway past that student, just, giving them a high five and telling them great job. It's just easy ways to kind of build that value so students understand that what they're doing is valued by others. They're not just doing it to make it through the day. The next norm is challenge, and this is kind of raises the question, is this just about completing assignments, or am I here to really develop something and learn? And this made me think of a little phrase that I always use in my classroom when we might be doing markups or just kind of some technique within a reading to help kids develop a specific skill. And they'll be like, oh, no, I'm supposed to make a line like this. And I always just tell them, I care less about you getting this done, and I care more about you learning this concept. So I want you to do it in a way in which you're able to learn it. So if you would rather circle these letters instead of underline it, you can circle it. It doesn't matter to me, but I think that just kind of sets that tone as well to develop a love for learning. I also consider enrichment, like in the MTSS structure, and just ways that we can always take kids a step further and taking the time to do so. We often take the time to help meet kids who might be struggling and meet those needs, but we also have to make sure that we're meeting the needs of students at a level of enrichment and making sure they feel challenged and engaged in the learning process as well. The last one is application, and this is kind of where I guess the rubber meets the road, as they say. It kind of asks ourselves the question, is this theoretical, or do I have opportunities to actually apply what it is I'm learning? I feel kind of blessed in the elementary realm because most of the content that we are teaching students is so foundational to functioning in life that it's kind of easy to apply. One of my favorite stories for providing application, kind of developing the application norm to one of the students that I had. He was an ED student, and so reading was definitely nothing he enjoyed nor wanted anything to do with at all ever. But he did love dirt bikes, and I remember referencing a conversation with him one time where we were talking about, well, if you're out riding dirt bikes and you come upon a sign and the sign says bridge out, and you didn't take the time to think about your sounds and practice your reading skills in my class, and you get there and you're not going to be able to look through and read that sign. Like, I don't want you to go on that road, and I don't want something bad to happen because you didn't choose, to do this. And it was crazy, but it was definitely a turning point in that kid's engagement in learning once he realized that this could actually matter and there is something to apply. What he's learning every single day and the experiences in which he's doing just completely engaged him so much more, and I hardly saw any resistance to learning after that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think application is definitely a key component in every single avenue. We always feel as though we're spending teaching time whenever we take the time to do things like give relevance or application or authenticity. But oh my goodness, the result is so worth it. The standards correlation, I believe that NS 2.1 standard is addressed through this module by taking the perspective of the student and considering how their own learning norms can impact their day and well-being. Guiding students to achieve these norms engages students in their learning and focuses on the student as a whole. When kids are engaged in their learning and take ownership, adults are relieved of that responsibility and can better support all students in the classroom. Relevance, this assignment improved my current teaching by providing me with norms to consider in my own classroom when working with students. Time is a hard norm for me. Time is a hard norm for me as I do reading intervention. My time is limited, and I try to build in these breaks throughout our 30 minutes, as well as capitalize on opportunities to relax and enjoy each other as we are walking to my room. And then the last one is reflection, and I will let you just read that one on your own. And when you are done, thank you so much for listening today.